All right, thank you guys. Welcome back to the Sedalia and Jai show. We're going to bring our special guest back, Miss Sarah Jane Riegler, founder of Afro House 2. And we have been chatting a lot, a lot. Thank you guys for joining us back. Hello, welcome back.
Hey, I was just jamming out to your theme song there.
Isn't
Hey.
it good? And you know what? We need to talk because I need original music. Between you and Dami, I'm gonna need you guys to produce me something, some kind of original music for my theme song. Okay, we're gonna talk about this.
We can arrange
But for
something.
now, we make it work. For now, we're making it work. I'm glad you liked it.
Mhm.
Before we cut out, well, sorry, we had to cut the time short rather because of the time limit. But we were talking a little bit in a continuation about like how you felt in your role, um, as it pertains to giving credit to African artists and producers and things of that nature, especially with the platform that you do have, and why you want to make sure that you don't fall into the category of the stereotypical colonial and European mindset of taking what isn't necessarily yours, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I was just about to share a story from that happened actually just a few months ago.
Yeah.
My good friend Razak El Toro, Nigerian DJ, producer, creative,
Okay.
amazing being from
Okay.
Toronto. We were sharing a back-to-back set. So we were literally like I would choose two songs, he would choose two songs back to back to back to back to back. And we
Okay.
were at like a really predominant electronic music club in the city.
Mhm.
And my friend throwing the event, like this was like a 20 minutes, 30 minutes into our set. And we said we were playing like an all Afro set. And he comes up to us and he's like, "Yeah, so are you guys gonna play like some Afro house and like African music?" And we're just like,
We have been on the same.
literally everything we've been playing. But it was because it was really like techy and dark and grimy and like it didn't just have a bunch of like African sampled vocals and a bunch of like drums in it. It was a lot of different sounds and we were playing like we were all over the place too. We were all over the continent as far as our song selection, all over the place as far as
You
feel
thought
and
you were
vibe.
doing your work. You thought you had did
We were
your
doing
due
what we usually
diligence, but that
do,
was a
but
learning moment, right?
the person who was putting it on and the place we were playing is like a predominantly white, and the person who was talking to me is like a white electronic music DJ, and just like everyone's just kind of throwing around, everyone's just like kind of jumping on this like Afro House, Tribal House bandwagon. But again, their concept of what that is and what that's defined by is like just based on extremely stereotypical like ideas of what Africa is, this concept of this
Mm-hmm.
country of
Mm-hmm.
Africa, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Africa is not a country, guys. Get it together.
I literally
Africa
had to give
needs
a lecture on that in one of my
representation.
tutorials.
Speaking of representation, we're gonna need to talk about you. If it fits your model, that's fine, but you better mix some Senegalese mbalak into some Afro house beat. I don't know, girl, but we're not being represented. Iman will
100.
understand. I'm upset.
I know, I don't, that's
No, but
actually
it's
like,
not. It's not.
you're,
That's different. Like
but you're
Senegalese music
totally right.
isn't.
I do not play that much Francophone
No,
music, and it's
Senegalese
something
music
I
is
need to
very
start doing.
culturally specific. It's like we have our stars and our celebrities, and they're international,
Hmm.
like the Yusundur, Kumbagawalo, Vivian Dur, Wally Sack. These are like the top artists. And even they haven't like necessarily crossed this threshold. Where I guess in music you'd call it like, are you what do they call it? Like when the moment when production companies or labels know or recognize cross chart like cross a crossover,
Crossover? Hmm.
right? So a lot of Senegalese music is very culturally specific. Like it's not something that could be popular unless you really like
Hmm.
know it, love it, understand it. It's not like they don't follow the structure or the formula of popular music, which we know there is a formula for, right? You add a couple
Yeah,
of this, a couple of that, you have a hit. All right. They've got it down to a science.
yeah.
But I do wish that there was still a little bit more like mixing, because now that there are DJs and producers who can mix stuff and make it creative, express yourself, but throw in a little bit of that stuff. It might be accepted.
Yeah, I agree. No, I mean, I mostly stay within like, I've got it's like mostly South Africa these days. Decent amount of Angolan music, Nigerian music,
What's
obviously, getting in
popular? Like I
music.
said, Senegalese music isn't
Hmm.
popular, isn't mainstream.
I've
The
been trying to play more
African
like
mainstream music is not coming out of Senegal.
but still, but like I don't want to be just on the popular wave. So it's like that's something I want to actually dive way deeper
That's
into.
why I feel like you
Definitely been
could.
trying to,
That's why I brought it up. I feel like you would be perfect
yeah.
to explore what that could look like, even in a fun, modern way. Like that could still be like introducing people to that music, but in a way that they could accept to like not have this a shock. And then we ease the the traditional.
Yeah, one step at a time. Yeah, I've been incorporating a lot more Tanzanian music, and like
Nice,
I've been trying to just be like, okay, I got Malawi, had some
nice.
Malawian music coming, and I'm like, step by step, I gotta make it.
I
It's
feel
it's
you.
it's it's an interesting thing, like trying to like as a DJ, we're put in this position of like trying to like you're kind of trying to please everyone in the room, and also
I
like
was like, what
not
does
giving a
that
fuck
feel
and
like?
trying
How
to
do
do
you
you.
manage that, girl? Ooh. Like, how do you read the room? Like, how do you know, like, oh, they're dancing, she's not twerking? No, my song's not working. Like,
It's such a psychological experience, and every gig is different because your mindset for every gig is different. So like if it's a party I'm throwing and I'm like I'm the one making the rules here, so like I'm gonna play the music that I want to essentially most of the time because like for
right,
Afro House, it's like I'm gonna play all African music from start to finish. When I first started it, I had to play a lot of dance hall and soca because
right,
in
right.
Toronto, that's like I had to meet them halfway to even like no one liked at B. Like I would play Omunye. I would play Omunye and people would leave the damn dance floor all the time.
No, honey, Amunia is
Yeah.
popping. Yes.
That's like the
Well,
one track
I don't think
everyone
they were
knows
ready
now.
for it then. It wasn't the time. It
It
wasn't.
wasn't
Everything
so,
has its time.
sometimes you gotta meet people halfway, give them something they're familiar with. I mean,
This
and
is
then
true.
if you're hired for certain gigs, like the other extreme would be like being a wedding DJ where it's like you are at their mercy, you do exactly what they want. And then like when we throw our own parties with very specific themes, it's kind of like, okay, everyone who's showing up, you're at my mercy. You're here because you want, like, I'm gonna play what I'm gonna play. And sometimes it's a dance of a little bit of both, where like, you gotta like sense you, and it's also an exciting thing. Like, my like friend and like brother DJ Shakti is like incredible at this because he's Indian, but he's born and raised in Kigali, Rwanda, and
Okay.
speaks like 8 languages. And so he's somebody that like he can go into any room and drop tracks that make people literally cry because they
Yeah.
can't like
Yeah.
he's so good at getting
Yeah.
into just it's like that you could also
Mm-hmm.
do that as a DJ where you're like it's a very nostalgic thing. You're like getting at people's heartstrings, and making them remember times and places and people are shocked that you can even do that. I obviously experience that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. Everyone's always just like
That's the craft. That's the artistry of it. People
it
don't know
really
that's
is,
the
yeah.
craft of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's really incredible. I've always admired that because I'm like, yeah, how do you read there, honey? I'm like, as a performer, it's a little different because it's still a little more structured, but that you just like, it's tough to like have the mix between, like you said, playing what you want to play, but then playing what the people want, but then also knowing how to introduce new music because you're always also influencers in that regard, right?
You're
Knowing
a
how to
curator.
introduce. And yeah, like if you drop a track, like a Curator Fly, for example, has a really great way of like he's pushing his culture in those francophone moments, but he knows when to insert them. Like it's like at the peak of our emotional height, and then he's like, "Now I'm gonna give you this French thing, and you're gonna love it," and then you do, you know.
Yep.
So I just that
Yeah,
was just
he's
an example
incredible.
of like yeah, of like how there's still a role and responsibility that you guys play. You are culture influencers.
Absolutely. 100%. There is so much power in curation. That's something I've been talking about, especially this week, a lot about. And that's curation not only of like deciding who is on stage as an event curator, but as DJs, we're like literally he calls himself sound curator. We're curators of sound. And so we are deciding who gets heard. And there's a lot of
Yes,
power in that. And
yes,
for me, recently the shift, especially for Afro House, has been a lot to support and uplift the local Afro scene and the artists and producers that are
absolutely.
really, really coming up here and doing amazing things that's on par with anything worldwide,
I want
you
to
know?
commend you on that because
Oh, thank you.
that was my greatest observation. I believe that that you really have created this platform and this initiative where you are highlighting those artists, and there's so many talented artists, and I just people don't know. Like for those of you, because I have a global audience. Okay, I have people's in France, we got people's from the States, we got people's from Africa. But guys, Toronto, like we have our little niche, our little artist hub, and we're quite comfortable in it.
So much talent. That's honestly why I even wanted to do events in the first place, is I was like, there's literally an insane amount of talent here. And I don't
Nothing's
feel like
lacking.
people
And the fact that we are
know.
communal, like some of us do no schedule or live shows around each other because we have that much
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Like what? Like no, I'm saying this, y'all not getting it. Like there's not a world, especially like in the States where we're from, that has that kind of like camaraderie and community and unity. This is very special.
I agree. I agree. That's what I love about it is it's like I hear horror stories all the time and I'm just like it's just I don't want it to be like that. And it's not, I mean, there's pockets of that in Toronto here and there, but overwhelmingly, and I think it's also because the world isn't really looking at us. Like the world's looking at like Drake and The Weeknd, I guess, but like this underground scene is so vibrant and just so rich and very diverse. Like there's so many different diverse voices. Like people in Toronto have such a unique viewpoint, and it's just so worth being shared. It's worth being amplified. It's worth giving
But I
a
think that
platform to as much as we can, you know?
yeah, what's deep is that we are building community and we may not even realize that we are. I
Hmm.
don't think we even understand the depth of that. I think that is going to take on a life of its own. The culture, the life that we've kind of created around each other for it to happen so organically is like again a really powerful thing. And I think that if we wait a few years, y'all gonna see, like, because we're one of us is going to blow up and we're taking everyone else. Like this is how it works. This is how life works. We're creating our own one percenters and we don't even know it.
Yeah, and it's like that too. It's like, and it just we all get so much. It's this like ridiculous belief about competition that like you gotta like outcompete each other because there's like
Yes.
a very limited, finite space at the top, and it's like no, like we are all building together, and like your wins are my wins, right?
Absolutely, because there isn't a place of selfishness. I feel like everyone's like willing, and that's what the problem therein lies, I guess, where there is that competition. Because when someone achieves something or does something, they think selfishly and only include themselves, right? But this culture and community that we've created, we're thinking about each other consciously and including each other in our growth and in our endeavors. I think that's what makes a difference. Um, very true. But I feel like I would consider yourself like, pretty eclectic and knowledgeable when it comes to music. But I think my biggest question is like how has having different learning styles, and I said we would come back to it, but how has having different learning styles I think helped you not only in understanding of culture, but in your musical career?
Well, it's really culminated being a DJ. Being able to dip into a lot of different things and show up and play a lot of different parties and be able to like I feel like as DJs are when we really find our voice, it's like that unique culmination of all these kind of random things we've been into. And if you can like fuse it together and present it and make it work, that's been like for me, that's been a real asset to be able to have exposure to so many different genres and be able to put something together that's very uniquely my voice out of many different things. And like that putting together like a puzzle of those different, maybe seemingly separate things becomes like your contribution. So it's helped me a lot as a DJ. But it's also helped me, I mean, being an actual musician myself and like having a lot of depth and training in that has helped so much too.
Receptiveness, I feel
Oh,
like it's made you're more receptive to certain things, so you're soaking it up, right? And that's going to take a
yeah,
conscious effect on you.
yeah. And just being in such a multicultural city of Toronto, it's like having experience and dived into a lot of different places because I haven't even mentioned yet, but I was really deep into like Indian tabla for a couple of years, studying that very seriously. I was
Wow.
playing in
Yeah.
like Indonesian, like Balinese and Javanese ensembles. I was did a little bit of Brazilian stuff. So it's like I did a teeny bit of like Middle Eastern frame drumming, and it's like it helps you relate to people in general. Period. Have
Mhm.
that knowledge, and in a place like Toronto, that works out well. It's nice to be able to have that kind of like drops. It just like warms you up to people, and connects you to them, in a different way, in a way that's meaningful oftentimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly important to be eclectic. Is that how you even like maybe got into DJing? Because I know like you were like you said you were a musician first, but like DJing wasn't you've told us, shared with us that was something you were kind of like shying away from. You didn't want that, but was there a moment where you felt like what does DJing mean for you? Was that like a moment for you? Like, how did that come about?
DJing was a moment for me to have a solo project because as a drummer and percussionist, like I'm always playing in some kind of group. There's rarely just like solo drummers out there. Like, it's definitely a supporting instrument, and I always joke because I have like the personality. And for me, like as anyone who's seen me DJ, I'm extra AF and ridiculous the whole time. And like to be literally in the back of a band as a drummer, like sitting down was always a weird thing for me because I'm like, I want to be that front person, so
your 3-year-old
like
self was coming out, inner child performing, was like, I want to be seen.
and I mean, believe me, when I still play drums in my bands, like I am back there, but I'm still extra and doing my own thing. But it like just allowed me to have my own voice and be an artist. Like I've always been just like in the supporter role, and I do love creating with people. There's something so special about like being able to be in that ensemble and co-create together. I love that experience. However, being a DJ was like, wow, I don't have to negotiate with anybody about like my opinion or my taste or the direction I want to go in. Like it's just me. It's just me calling the shots. I can just express myself.
Absolutely.
And just like, yeah, so it was really nice to shift into that. And it's still great to also play in bands that I do now. It's like I get to have both of those things fulfilled. Because it is also really incredible to connect and play with people. Obviously, that's why I do this, but
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's yeah, and I know that you're extremely passionate about a lot of things outside of music. I think that the music in this form like facilitates a greater cause. Sometimes I want to say you're very passionate about music, but you're also passionate about other things. I hate being put into a box, Sarah. Would you agree? I hate being put into one box because I am all things, darling.
Yes, I 100% feel you on that. Like I
That's
always.
part of what I love about bringing guests on like yourself and all the guests that I come on. I never have a guest who comes on who just does one thing.
No, that's why I couldn't make a decision
Because
like during my.
that's an inaccurate representation of who we are as human beings, ma'am.
Yeah, I've never that's why I'm like I'm interested in so many different kinds of music, and I'm like I couldn't make that decision in my schooling. I was like I have to do something in humanities and in music. Like I can't decide,
Right.
Yeah.
So speaking of humanities, is that something else you're extremely passionate about? I know that you have involvement in like bioregion, water crisis, and holistic health. We'll touch on holistic health later, but what else are you extremely passionate about in terms of, and you're an environmentalist a little bit too, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think music isn't so for me. I've always been someone who's I feel almost weird using the word activist, but I'm like very invested in trying to
Better
like
claim it. I didn't even think of, honey, we claim it. Activism.
I mean, I'm very for activism. I just feel weird about like these days, like holding that title of like I'm an activist,
I
and
know
blah blah blah. Give me
that's
a
a part of the
cookie.
stigma though. That's a part of that like non-committal. Like if you're committed to, you better not call yourself. You're not afraid to call yourself the founder of Afro House too. You're not afraid to call yourself a DJ or a musician because you've claimed
Hmm.
it, you know it, and you are living that. Activism is no different. It looks however
Yeah,
you want it to look like.
thank you. um,
I'm sorry, I
yeah,
didn't
so
even reprimand you. I just
no. It's all good. I can take it. Don't worry. It was a very empowering
it was love. This is
reprimand.
love, guys. You guys
No,
know this.
I
All
received it as
love.
love, and yeah. So for me, it's like with all the different events I'm doing, with all the music I'm doing, it's like I'm always just like, yes, but what impact can I make? What am I doing? How am I showing up? And so you brought up like the bioregion.
Consistently, yeah.
Yeah, and so when I'm talking about the bioregion, I'm talking like the Great Lakes region. So I'm from Michigan. I don't know if I said that yet, but I'm from Michigan,
Yeah.
and Ontario and Michigan, we're obviously bordering each other, and I've been full circle becoming really really tight with a lot of musicians that are based in Michigan and like in the Midwest, like Ohio and Indiana too, and Illinois, and we really share this bioregion of the Great Lakes, and we happen to have these ridiculous borders that just are like between us. However, like we share a lot of the same ecological issues. We share a lot of issues, and so something that comes up in my region is water and the water crises, and like how we can have, be surrounded by, the largest supply of fresh water, the Great Lakes, yet still have the Flint and Detroit water crises where people are paying money and for many years can't even use this water to shower, let alone drink and like, consume internally. So that's a big cause, and that is, extremely tied up in racial inequity, systemic oppression. So these things are something that, that's a big thing that a lot of the different music festivals and my friends from back home, they actually have organizations about this, and like the festivals and stuff I play in, like it's really rooted in social justice issues. And for me, that's also like, it's just not even an option. It's like, that's something where I'm like, I have to be as invested in this because everything is political. Everything is political. I hate in this right now when all these white people are backing off of things, being like, I don't want to bring politics into my business, so I'm not going to make a statement about this. It's like everything's political. Every damn thing's political.
It is every moment, and you have to second guess it. My biggest issue too. That's been a part of even me, love. I felt like I didn't want to call myself an activist, so I got so personal on you.
Yeah.
I still maybe don't consider myself that, but calling and timing, place, convenience, calling, destiny, all these things come into place, come together for us to act. And for, if you're not religious, you don't have to be religious, but you're spiritual. Even I feel like the universe or God or whatever you believe in, it calls on you. And when it calls on you, you can't ignore it. You can't. Like, things are happening in a way that I didn't even expect them to happen. I didn't necessarily consider myself even politically inclined or like politically interested outside of perhaps voting. But I think I was like a lot of your average citizen, where you just kind of like vote because you, okay, but I didn't really understand the power of voting or understand the power of politics. I thought that it was stressful and it was that I couldn't trust it and I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't think that my voice mattered or made an impact. And now I feel otherwise. And actually started at the beginning of quarantine. I've never knew so much in my life. And when being intelligent enough, once I started watching the news, I was able to discern or decipher on my own what information I felt made sense or what didn't. And that drew me to further research. And so one thing became another thing. And now I'm like, you're in politics, damn it. You're not, like, you're interested in this subject matter. I wasn't even interested.
Yeah. But I would argue actually the opposite, that like everything, like, okay, so even every day, yes, we vote every single day. We vote we vote through our dollar. And that's what we invest money in.
Are you going to do the blackout on the 17th, is it?
The blackout?
Yeah, the dollar blackout. Are you going to participate?
Well, I feel like an idiot and for some reason, have not. I'm going to just be really honest with you. And I'm like, haven't heard it, but I'm sure I will.
Yeah, this is one of the positive things about social media. As you said, this is the one of the rare times that it actually is serving its true purpose. And there's been a message. I have to write it. I didn't write it down. The woman, she put out a video on IG. I have to get her handle, guys. Forgive me. I will get that information to you. You will see it on my story. But she put out a video basically saying that we control the dollar, and major corporations in this capitalistic society, they only understand money. That's the only language they understand.
That is a language.
How do we speak to them or reach them when that's the only language they understand? Well, you meet them where they understand. And
money talks is the only way people listen.
It's supposed to be global, but for now it's national here in Canada for sure. That it's not officially recognized by the government, but it's just one individual who has put out this so mass spread that we're all starting to talk about it. So I'm sure you'll see it very soon. But I'm here. I'm happy to spread her message and tell that we're deciding to, for one day, I think it's June 17th. I'll get back to you guys on that for sure. But for one day, we're not going to spend $1, not to go buy gas, not grocery store, not wine, not nothing. For one day, if an area with enough people just don't use their money, they'll feel the impacts and understand that we're woke.
Yep.
But it has to be a collective effort. It doesn't count if only 5 people don't want to. It has to be like they will need to see the massive impacts, or when they create charts and data and demographics they see on this day, our sales plummeted.
Well, yeah, it's another form of protest, boycotting, you know, it's like, and our dollar, like, I think we forget that how powerful where we invest our money is. And that's something when I keep encouraging people to think about, like, this is a marathon, not a sprint, when we're overthrowing huge systemic inequities that have been, like, our countries have literally been built on. It's like, you know, it's like we have to think long term about how we're making sustainable change and committing to that. And one of the biggest places is, where are you shopping? Where are you spending your money? How are you supporting Black businesses?
And we don't
Long
think
term,
about
always.
convenience, not about social responsibility. If Walmart's not being
Amazon.
socially responsible, I shouldn't be spending my money there. But God darn it, they got good prices, girl, and I'll be broke. That's how they get you.
Well, yeah, and what I'm trying to think is, like, you know, especially at very, I like really try to, I'm pretty, you know, like, I try to really hammer this home to, like, the more holistic, conscious, spiritual community that is, like, predominantly white and middle class. I'm like, look, it's easy for us to do things like go vegan, want to buy organic, you want to have ecological cleaning products, you want to have cage-free eggs, you want to make sure you're buying
Because
local.
you're earning the
So
income to do that. But lower income families cannot afford to be that.
yeah, but I'm just trying to say, like, reprogram that same concept, shift that into, like,
Right.
supporting Black business. Like, we're already being so mindful of how we're spending our money in those ways. So I'm like, people need to apply the same thought process to now this movement, that they're like, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, you do this all the time, just with different things. So, like, you need to shift it, and, like, also consider why prices are more expensive sometimes. Because actually, more so, consider why prices are so cheap. That's what you need to start thinking about. Why are some things so cheap places? There's usually somebody losing at some point, somebody suffering to make that price low, right? Might be the environment, might be actual beings, you know, like.
Right, and like you say, they might be producing things in third world, not third world. I know that was an underdeveloped. Did you know I learned that third world country is inappropriate to say?
Yeah.
Historically, I didn't know that. That's
It's
the reason
honestly,
I learned. But I was like, yeah, third world countries. I was like, no, that's not. That's the improper definition of an underdeveloped country. And
I would
underdeveloped is based
actually,
on whose definition?
I would say developing, I think, is a more positive than even underdeveloped, because you're saying, like, oh, you're less than, versus being like, you're developing, like, you're in the motion of I don't
Right.
know. That's what they always told us. That, like, this is something, for instance,
Differently
like,
growing. No.
yeah, I don't know, like, that was something that came up a lot, like, when I was at U of T, like, we talked a lot about language, and so I, that was just like a niche of my life, you know, so I'm, you know,
Because even that
language is
very
powerful.
standard, though, even that very concept, I guess I realized in unlearning was that, like, even this definition of saying that a country is underdeveloped, like, let's say Senegal is underdeveloped in comparison to America, the United States, let's say. Um, who told me that it was underdeveloped? Like, who
Yeah,
defined
compared
that,
to whom?
right? Like, who defined that? Who
According
told me
to
that?
whom?
But it's so ingrained that I even say it. Like, that's the only way I know how to verbalize that country in regard to other things when I'm speaking, just generally in my day-to-day language. But
Right.
that's powerful. I'm thinking about, I have to unlearn that. I'm like, it's not really technically, they're telling us it's underdeveloped. That's why a lot of Africans there want to come over here. And they
Right.
don't value the resources and value their environment, and it's hard, and there's this whole structure in place, but that whole structure is based still on colonialism.
100%.
And I want to tell a lot of Africans too, and I'm going to say it again only here on this platform, and I don't know, and I don't think that you even maybe know this, because even we don't know this as Africans, but going back, a lot of Black people feel like the solution to this movement is to go back to Africa. They are romanticizing Africa. Going back home is not the solution either, because why did they come here to begin with? If home was so great, why did they even leave? Or why did their parents leave here to come have this better life? That comes from a mindset. Doesn't mean those resources don't exist in those countries, but even those people in those countries are struggling and are still under the hold of colonialism. Just because their president is Black or African doesn't mean that he's not being, controlled by a European elsewhere.
Oh, yeah.
There is
There's
no
still a lot
freedom.
of,
There is
like,
no freedom anywhere for Black people. There is no freedom anywhere. I just really wish Africans would stop romanticizing that. We need to unite and change globally, not just saying, oh, well, we're not wanted here, we're going to go there. You're not wanted there either.
Yeah, that was a harsh reality. So when I was studying abroad in Ghana, we went over with about 60 Americans, very
Right.
diverse group from all over the country and all different racial backgrounds. And a lot of Black Americans were obviously going back there because they wanted a sense of home and belonging that they've never felt in America. And it was really heartbreaking for many of them because they weren't received that way. And most of them, even if they're people who are mixed race or even just light skin, were put into the same category as me. Like they always called us Obruni foreigner. And that was really hard because now we're being like literally placed in the same category as like white people and foreigners. And a lot of like even some of my professors like didn't like Black Americans straight up. They were like pretty rude and because they were
Yeah,
like,
they
well,
see
they
us
come
as ignorant. I've lived
well
both
and
sides.
they
I
they it comes
literally am African American, Sarah. Literally.
yeah,
Mom is American, dad Senegalese. I've lived both lives. I understand it in its entirety.
yeah,
And shit
yeah.
is real. Shit got real, real quick. The Africans that I speak to, they don't see Black Americans or Blacks in a very high regard. They judge them. They don't
Mhm.
understand them. They don't appreciate them. And vice versa.
Yeah,
So there's a disaccord. There's a disaccord.
there's
But
a lot there's a lot of discords, you know. It's like there's a lot of coming together that needs to happen in like so many levels in society, you know,
so it
between
has
so
to
many
start
different
with us even
groups.
understanding ourselves and accepting ourselves as Black people and unite. Because the Asians come from all different provinces and areas and cities, but they get along or
Yeah, I
understand.
mean, there's
No,
so much tension a
yeah.
lot of places though. And I mean, I think I just feel like I want to insert this as kind of a random aside, but like something that you know, is an important thing to add to the conversation that's happening right now is um, the queer Black community, trans Black
Hmm.
community. Where's the Black Lives Matter? Well, does that include queer people and trans people? Because that's still a huge issue that's happening, you know? So there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of needing to come together on a lot of ways. And, you know, how do Black women fit into this? How are we, you know,
Right.
like it's like there's got to be a collective coming together in so many layers right now of society.
True. It's true. It's overwhelming. You're absolutely right. I think this
Yeah.
is a perfect segment into holistic health because if we're going to tackle these demons, honey, we need to be strong and healthy and conscious. And that's part of, that's another one of your gifts. And I'm so grateful to have you on here tonight. So we're going to wrap things up soon, ladies and gentlemen. But I know that you believe strongly in the power of reflection in terms of holistic health
Yeah.
and in terms of reflection, like I think people, I want to make sure that I always give like concrete examples and things that people can take away. And I say tangible, not in this literal sense. Tangible literally means something you can hold, see, feel, that's connected to the senses. But I use tangible in the sense that maybe it's not like a sight sense, but it's like something you can take away, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Practical things to take away. Important.
Exactly. For our viewers who are here with us, and we would thank you again for being here on the Sedalia and Jai Show with our special guest, Sarah Jane Riegler. Um, but what tools do you use for reflection? I know how much you value reflection. What tools are you using for reflection?
Yeah, I'm someone, I journal a lot. Journaling has, you know, it's a conversation with yourself. I don't think we pause enough in society to check in and have conversations with ourselves. And another really beautiful part of journaling is the ability to look back. Like, I mean, I have the last like many years of my life categorized, and even when it comes to like mental health issues or just like looking for patterns in myself, I've been working with a really incredible psychiatrist. Actually, I don't usually work with Western psychologists and psychiatrists, but it's been amazing. Like throughout the work he and I are doing, like if I'm noticing a pattern within myself, like a pattern that is unhelpful, things like cycles I fall into that are not helpful, it's
Mm-hmm.
so nice to be able to go look back and just see what I was writing. How was I dealing with situations? And there's so
True.
many ways
Yeah.
to journal, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I use it as a tool for
Of
me.
assessment,
Sorry?
almost. Right? It's almost a means of assessment in a way, right? Like.
Yeah, I use journaling in a lot of different ways. Sometimes I'm somebody that like I think being a creative, and I'm someone who can be very anxious. Like my head, I'll wake up and my head is just always spinning with like
Oh,
so many different ideas,
million
so many
miles an
different
hour.
things going on all the time. There's always so much. So like sometimes I have to journal just to literally just like completely freestyle out of my head, just like no judgment. Like I'm just gonna keep writing, and just to get it out. And it literally gives me relief. Like it actually gives me relief to just like have something out of my head and tangibly on a just doing that practice.
Right.
If I sometimes when you're actually frozen, you're like, I just have so much in my head, I don't know what to do. That's one of my first things that I do just to
Yeah.
get it out of my head and somewhere tangible. And maybe that's not even to decipher it later. That's just because I need to like dump things out.
Right.
Um, so I do that. Something I do in the morning, especially like I'm extremely hard on myself. I'm like always unsatisfied. I'm always like, you can do better. I have a lot of issues with not feeling productive, and I just have a lot of issues with not feeling enough. I'm doing that. Not I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough.
Mhm.
And
I
so
agree.
one of the
Honesty, I think we all feel that. That's very brave and honest of you. We all feel it.
Yeah, and it's something I like really struggle with. It's like definitely one of my cycles and things I'm working
Of
through.
course.
So to combat that, to help combat that, I journal like what I'm proud of myself for. Sometimes every morning I'm just like, I always in the morning I'll reflect upon the last day and I'm like, I'll write at least like 5 things that I'm proud of myself for. And sometimes things to celebrate. I always think about Dammy and Dolo because I have this like writing I do every day where I add to this list of like, what am I celebrating right now? And that could be things that
Yes,
I've done that I've
finish
accomplished.
recipe. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just things that have happened, things I'm grateful for. It's kind of like proud of myself and things I'm grateful for. And like, I do that in the mornings to get myself in that mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And